Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. My name is Clifton, and I'll be sauntering along this trail of tales with you. And joining me is someone who's just staring and singing, "Come into the fold." Is it "come into the fold" or "come into my fold"? You're welcome.
I can't wait till we talk about that part. It really could be either, but it is "come into the fold."
Okay. Well, Jay, what are we listening to?
We are listening to LS Underground's 1992 rock opera, The Grape Prophet.
The Grape Prophet. This is Mike Knott.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Is this just widely available to listen to?
So normally I would say no. This is actually really hard to find, except it got re-released in 2021 by Lost in Ohio, like on vinyl, and I think they even put out a new CD version. And they added 3 or 4 acoustic tracks that were like re-recorded and stuff. So like with Mike singing again, done differently. It's actually really fun. Anyway, the point is, it's very easy to find now. Thank goodness. Because for a while, this was kind of obscure.
It's on Bandcamp. Is it on Spotify?
It's on Bandcamp. It's on Spotify. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy to find.
I just listened to what I downloaded, so I didn't... I bought it. I didn't just download it, guys, okay? Come on.
What a nice guy.
I'm not a stealer over here. I steal a lot of things. Was this played in your youth group, Jay?
No. I'd be shocked
Why
if this was
not?
played in a youth group. Because it's weird and almost sexually explicit in parts. It's got a lot of stuff going on. This is not youth group music.
Yes. Okay. Why are we doing this then?
Well, okay. For me, this just felt timely. We've talked a little bit about all the things happening at IHOP in Kansas City. There's a Patreon episode out there, but I think we made it available to everyone. So Kansas City, Mike Bickle, all that. And then with Mike not passing away just, I guess, about a little over a month ago now, this just felt like the right time to do this album because it really hit both topics.
Yes. Okay. Well, before we move on, please visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. We've got some stuff that we'll probably record soon. Sorry, we've been busy the last month. It's been kind of crazy on both sides. Yeah. But, the summer will be slow, I'm sure. Winter summer's busy. Never busy. They'll be great.
But don't worry, we will have some fun bonus stuff. I've got some ideas where I make Clifton listen to some things and try to convince him that he should like them. He should do the same for me. I don't know. It could be fun. Anyway.
I've tried. All right, no. Right, Jay, well, tell us a little bit about LS Underground, not LSU, not Lifesavers, not any of those things, just LS Underground.
Oh boy, where to begin? This is kind of like, tell me about Bob Dylan or something. This is like the Christian version of that. I'm going to try to keep this brief, and I'll go ahead and say that all of you should read the liner notes written by J. Edward Keyes for the re-release of this album on Lost in Ohio. They have graciously shared all of them on their website, and I'll be drawing heavily from them.
And we'll share the link in the show notes.
Because they're they cover much more than just this album. It's really worth looking into. But I will say this: Michael Knott played in many different bands throughout Southern California in the 80s, but things started to really pick up with the band Lifesavers, and that's Savors. So the band started as an outgrowth of the Vineyard Church movement with Chris Wimber, who is the son of the Vineyard's founder, John Wimber, playing bass. And Mike joined as a guitarist. The sound was kind of punky, kind of new wave. John Wimber, the pastor, wanted the band to focus more explicitly on evangelism, which didn't really work for Mike Knott. He quit the band and it kind of fell apart. A few years later, he ended up reforming it, slightly changing the spelling to Lifesavers, Savers, And they ended up releasing their album Kiss of Life in 1986, which J. Edward Keyes in the liner notes describes as, quote, moody art pop. After that release, Knott began to move in a darker post-punk sound and changed the name to Lifesavers Underground, or LS Underground. So as LS Underground, they released Shaded Pain in 1987, which Keyes writes, and I quote, an album that is now correctly regarded as one of the best records ever released in the Christian market. At the time, the response was different. We couldn't get a gig for 3 years after we released that, Knott laughs. The fallout after Shaded Pain's release has been well documented. One oft repeated, but never sourced, story has a bewildered music buyer at a Christian bookstore wondering how he was supposed to sell Parents on a record that sounded like it was being played by a gang of vampires and included lyrics like, our time has come to kiss the cleaver. He says, everybody hated us after Shaded Pain, Deutsch remembers. We were signed to Frontline Records, and they just went, what the hell is this? And then the Christian bookstores banned it, and we couldn't get any gigs because a lot of churches thought we'd gone off the deep end. So, because of all this, and other factors, Michael Knott ended up forming his own label, Blonde Vinyl, which released albums from Knott, and that was under various forms, like Lifesavers, LS Underground, even a Mike Knott solo album, along with other bands from the scene at the time, Breakfast with Amy, Black and White World, even Dance House Children, which was an early project of the Martin Brothers, Ronnie, who would go on to do Joy Electric, Jason, who would go on to do Starflyer 59. So after Shaded Pain, Ellis Underground released Waking Up the Dead in 1989, and This Is the Healing in 1991. The Grape Prophet is their fourth release, coming out in 1992 on Blonde Vinyl. And I'll say at this point, the band is Mike Knott, vocals and guitar, Brian Deutsch, guitar, Mike Sauerbrey, bass, and Chuck Cummings on drums.
One thing they talk about in that article, though, is that it's less of a band and more of a Mike Knott calling people and telling them to come down to the recording studio because he has an album he wants to record.
Yeah, what you kind of see is it's a lot of his output around this time, late 80s throughout the 90s, is Mike Knott. And then a lot of it is Brian Deutsch on either guitar or bass on some of the other albums. That's kind of like the two that are mostly playing together throughout all of this. The drummers change, the bassist or the other guitar change, but those two are on a lot of the releases.
Okay. And engineered by?
You know what? I didn't even check. I'm assuming Gene Eugene, but maybe not.
Nope.
Oh.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Chris Colbert. Come on.
Ah, Chris Colbert of Breakfast with Amy, and then went on to produce many other things, including some of our favorite albums on this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right, Jay, how did you find this thing?
So I will be honest, I never really listened to this back in the day. I did hear one song when I was like 11 or 12 on that. So after Blonde Vinyl kind of folded because they had distribution problems.
In 92, 93?
Something like, honestly, not long after this album, another label, I think it was Broken Records, but I might have this wrong, released a sampler called Radioactive Hits. And if I remember correctly, and I'm really just going from memory, this is not in my notes, they had a song, Ellis Underground had a song on there, and I think it was Wino of the Red is Stained off this album. And I remember being like, I'm like 11 or 12 when I hear this. But I remember just thinking like, what the hell is this? This is really, really weird. I was not into it. And as we'll get to that song, as we go through this, you'll see why that was maybe not the best choice to introduce someone to this. So that's all I had heard.
Definitely not 11-year-old.
Yeah, I later picked up like their next album, or no, actually their two albums later, Grace Shaker, that I liked quite a bit, but it has a very different sound than this one. So honestly, like, I'll just jump ahead and say, going into this, I really was not sure what to expect.
Okay. So when did you first listen to it?
Like a month ago when we started doing this.
So you knew it was out there. You knew what the story was about.
Mm-hmm. But I felt like I really said, like, been thinking a lot about Kansas City, IHOP, Mike Bickle, Michael Knott dies. So, of course, like a lot of people probably, I was going back and listening to a lot of his stuff and thought, I know that this is about that a little bit, so why not check it out? And here we are.
Okay. Speaking of, you recently recorded an episode with the Excommunication Station.
That's true. I did 2 episodes actually because it was so
2 episodes.
long.
Are they out yet?
I think one of them is by the time this comes out. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
we talked about the Kansas City Prophets actually a little bit. So if you want to hear more about Bob Jones, who we're going to reference in this episode in just a minute, there's definitely more there.
All right. Cool. Well, Jay, are we just jumping in then?
Yeah, I guess so, because neither one of us had you'd never heard any of this, right?
Nope.
All right, let's jump in. I will say before we get to the song, I have a little bit I want to read you from the liner notes, because I feel like this if you went into this album and had like no idea, no reference, I would think you'd be extremely confused.
Yes.
And I'll read you what's in the liner notes, but even that's not super helpful. So this is the original kind of paragraph was in the original album when it came out. It says, "This is a story of Ellis, an orange picker from the groves of Southern California. Ellis worked for Colonel Peckison, the orchard boss, and was introduced to oversee all of the hired hands for the colonel. One day early in the morning, as Ellis was picking oranges before the hired hands were to awake, the colonel climbed up the ladder Ellis was picking from and handed him a letter. The letter stated, 'We the pickers have heard the call of the Grape Prophet and have chosen to leave the orchards and work on the grapevines up north. After much coaxing by Colonel Peckison, Ellis decides to travel to the grapevines to find out more of this Grape Prophet in hopes of returning with the hired hands before the orange crop spoils.'"
All right.
Now, without this context, this doesn't make a ton of sense. And I can imagine people were pretty confused when this came out, even still. Like,
because even then, what are you supposed to do?
yeah,
with
like,
this? Yeah.
What the hell? Mike Knott just made up this whole parable. So I dug around, and to give you more context, this is actually what I'm about to read is from a 1992 interview/article with Mike. It was published in like a Kansas City Christian Arts and Entertainment Guide.
Why Kansas City?
Because the album references it. And it's by this guy named Michael Lucci. So I'm just going to read you 2 short things from that. Came out around the time to give you a better grasp of what's going on here. So, quote, "About 2 years ago, a group led by Bob Jones, an older gentleman from Kansas City, came out and visited the Vineyard churches in Anaheim." This is Mike Knott speaking. "I was leading a Bible study and it was doing pretty well. We had a lot of young bands and a lot of young people, so we basically worshiped for 30 minutes and then had about a 30-minute study. One night, the people in the group suggested we go see Bob Jones at the Vineyard. According to what they had heard, he was a prophet of God with some great things to say." And then that's into the quote. The author says, "It's not hard at this point to mesh the story and reality. Knott is represented by Ellis, the Bible study, the pickers, and according to Knott, Bob Jones is the Grape Prophet." Knott continues, "I was pretty reluctant about it. I wasn't promoting it, but I decided to go and see what happened. Anyway, he comes up and starts to prophesy about how he had predicted what would happen to Jimmy Swaggart and claimed that this was proof his prophecies were valid. He did so like in the song through an interpreter. He also claimed that he had eaten with Jesus and Jesus had told him they were the chosen fellowship, just like in the story." And that's the end of the quote. The author says, "Amazed by what he had heard and even more amazed at the crowd of nearly 4,000 that seemed to be eating it up, Knott left the meeting. He learned later that over half of the Bible study decided to leave in order to attend the Vineyard to follow the Grape Prophet." This is Mike Knott again. "They, of course, didn't call him the Grape Prophet," explains Knott. "That was just part of the story. They referred to him as the KC Prophet." So I think that's enough background to really kind of help us understand the beginnings of what's going on here.
All right.
So we can jump in.
Should we make the orange and vineyard connection first?
Yes, do it.
Okay. So Orange Orchard is like Orange County,
Mhm.
because that's where they are. And the church is Vineyard Church. That's why they're being called over to the Vineyard Church. The vineyard is the Vineyard Church.
And our protagonist in this story is Ellis, Ellis, which actually is same as LS, like Lifesavers Underground or Lifesavers. In this case, it's basically Mike Knott.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is a lot of things to talk about. I have a lot of things still from the liner notes that I want to talk about, but I guess we'll do that at the end.
Just jump in whenever you think so, Clifton.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to intersperse some stuff in here. So.
All right. I hope you have a good plan. Jay, tell us about the first song, Ellis in the Orchard.
Yeah, so it starts with some kind of just like distortion sound effects, and then it's straight into the distorted guitar, and then Mike Knott screams, "Yeah!" And then the full band comes in with lead guitar, and this is like pretty loud, pretty aggressive. And I just want to say, like, I went back and listened to some of the older LS Underground stuff before this, and even their last album right before this, and even the last song to kind of see where we left out. And this is definitely a shift. Like, vocal styling, it's more upbeat, it's louder, it's just like, this has got a lot of, I didn't really listen to this band, but people compared it, and I went and listened. I was like, okay, yeah, this has got a lot of like Jane's Addiction vibes to it. It's just, it's a different sound than they were doing before.
Okay.
So maybe let's just play the beginning a little bit. Yeah, so you could already hear the lead guitar in there in places. Like, it's definitely a rock record, you know?
Yes.
And you could probably hear the beginning of the verses already talking about him in the orchard, picking baskets of oranges, all that stuff. So it's loud. When it moves into the chorus, and you kind of had it right there at the end, it gets real kind of screamy in a couple of places. It is just kind of a loud, jammy starting song.
So one of the things that really got me in my first listen through here is for an album that's so dependent on you following a story, they decide to like unintelligibly scream.
Yeah.
Some of the lyrics.
Agreed. You need a few songs on here. You can pick it out. Some of them you definitely need the lyrics.
Yeah.
And even the chorus, I swear it sounds like he's saying pick up the sand, Colonel Pekkasan, but I think he's just saying Pekkasan, Colonel Pekkasan. According to the lyric sheet, it's just his name that they're saying over and over.
Yeah, Colonel Pekkasan is the name of the guy, I guess, who owns the orchard.
Which, that was one, I'll be honest, I looked back through and I can't figure out what that's referencing. Everything else means something, so I feel like for sure that actually means something, but...
Yeah, because like, what would the owner of the orchard represent in the story? Like, it seeming to me, it's like, it's got to be God, right? Like, what else would you're serving someone and then you left to go serve something else, right? But yeah, I don't know that I can make any sense.
Yeah,
of that.
That's the one that I wasn't following, but
okay.
Anyway, so like most of these songs on here are pretty standard, like verse, chorus, bridge, maybe third verse, chorus kind of thing or something, some form of that. And this is pretty similar.
This is musically, this is one of the more boring songs on the album as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. I mean, if you like lead guitar and kind of rock sound, it's kind of fun, but obviously Clifton's not.
I don't. That's not my thing.
Not as into it. But you can get this is the vibe starting off the beginning of the album for sure.
All right. Should we talk about the lyrics?
Yeah, and this is an album, and luckily, I'll be honest, the lyrics on most of these songs are not that long. This is an album where I think we kind of need to read them all to get us like on track with what he's doing.
All right. How about I read the lyrics and then you can lead us down a road of interpret. I'll read them and then you can be the English interpreter of English.
Perfect.
Okay. Ellis in the orchard picking baskets of oranges. Where are all the hired hands? They've gone to follow some prophet man, as far as I can understand. They left to follow some prophet man. Peckasan, poor Colonel Peckasan. Ellis up a ladder, looking down at a letter, says, "We are the pickers. We've gone to work in the vineyards. The Grape Prophet called, and we heard our names. Tell Colonel Peckasan that he's not to blame." Do you think it's just pick? Like pick? Like
maybe,
pick an orange?
Yeah, maybe that's it. That's kind of how it sounds when he says it, right?
Okay. And maybe like Jesus is a harvester? So Jesus is harvesting soul. Anyways, okay, we'll keep going. Sorry. Okay. Peckasan, poor Colonel Peckasan. Ellis in the orchard, picking baskets of oranges. Where are all the basket lines? They've gone to work on the grapevine. The colonel falls down on his face. All his orange juice is gonna waste. Peckasan, poor Colonel Peckasan.
So, it's set the stage. A lot of the workers have left. Obviously, they can't get their work done now. Orange juice is going to waste. Ellis is still there, but wondering where they all went. One thing, I don't know if you thought this, Clifton. One thing throughout this album, when he says the Grape Prophet, I kept thinking the Great Prophet.
Yeah. Like grape jug.
Yeah, like it just like... You just automatically want to think that. And I know the Grape Prophet is because it's the vineyard, so grapes and stuff, but it just works so well, like also having
I think that I think that's on purpose. Yeah.
Anyway, so basically what's going to happen is we're going to find out more what's going on at the vineyard with the Grape Prophet because Ellis is going to leave and go inspect.
Well, don't ruin... Spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why do you think the orange juice is so important that it not go to waste?
I don't know.
All right. Okay. I personally, in the vein of the story, I like the line, "Tell Colonel Peckasan that he's not to blame," because that's what the orchard pickers who went to the vineyard tell in the letter. They say, "Tell Colonel Peckasan that he's not to blame."
Right.
Which is interesting. Like, once again, who does Colonel Peckasan represent? Which really gives a lot of difference to how you can interpret, "Tell him he's not to blame." I don't know.
Well, in the line before that, the Grape Prophet called and we heard our names. Tell him he's not to blame. And I think that's like, if you've ever watched, we talked about it before, if you've ever watched any of this prophecy live, this is kind of the way it works in that, like, they'll name some kind of obscure, weird fact about you that's normally findable on the internet or by public records. And,
or just so general that could be anybody.
Right. And then they'll say, like, is there a Clifton here tonight who, I'm seeing blueprints laid out in front of me, like, "Oh, I'm an architect. I'm Clifton." I don't know. It'd be something like that or whatever. Like,
I'd be sitting there like, "You haven't used blueprints in 30 years. Fuck yourself."
But that's how it works. And so the idea of like, we heard our names, I'm sure is kind of alluding to that stuff that they do.
Okay. Should we listen to some prophecy?
I mean, we can. I have a clip I want to play later of
we'll do it later.
Bob Jones. So, yeah.
All right. So the next song is Travels. But Jay?
It's just an instrumental. I think it's just symbolizing him leaving, the orange grove and moving towards the vineyard.
Yeah. Not a bad song, though.
It's okay. Yeah, it's not bad, but in order to save time, we're probably going to skip it.
All right. Let's trot along to track 3, The Fold.
Yeah. So, this is, I think, just to keep up with the story, this is kind of like as he's approaching. And I think as he's starting to like, oh, I think I see her. And you'll see her used a lot in the song, which I think is kind of like one of the pickers who's left, a female.
Not the Bride of Christ.
And they'll reference a lot. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he's getting that deep. I think it's just a character, but who knows? But I will say that this song and some of the others sounds a lot darker, like kind of more foreboding sound with the music, which I think is definitely on purpose.
Yeah, and it has it has a completely different feel to it. This is one of the ones I found more interesting musically because it is not just straightforward lead guitar rock and roll. In fact, if you look at my screen over here, Jay, the newest version of Moises now, I can separate out lead guitar from rhythm guitar. Ooh. You see that? And there's almost no lead guitar on this song.
Well, and and I hadn't thought of it until we were talking about it now, Clifton, but maybe song number 1 is just kind of regular rock and roll because it's supposed to represent just like, status quo. This is normal. Like we're in the vineyard, everything. But now shit's about to get a lot weirder as he leaves the vineyard and approaching it. So this song is definitely like weird.
Yeah, this song has a lot more of that like late 80s, early 90s indie alternative, like a little Pixies in there,
I could see that. Yeah. I don't love his vocal style on this. I mean, it's interesting. It's not my favorite Mike Knott style of vocals for sure.
I liked it.
That kind of high.
I mean, I don't listen to a whole album like this, but I liked it.
Yeah, but for the song, it's fun. And we'll get to it in a minute. The song kind of switches halfway through to something else, and we'll hit it in a minute. But before, I guess if you could call it a chorus, that screaming part is like, where he says, "I think I see her now." You played it just a second ago. That's kind of the chorus up to this point. I was wondering if you could play around 1 minute and 40 seconds in. I swear to God, it sounds like there's like a siren in the background here. And we'll play this and you just let it play a little longer. So this is where the song is about to shift too. But right before it shifts, I swear it sounds almost like siren-ishy in the background. It might just be a weird guitar.
That could be either... It could just be like a chorus effect on a guitar going... Or flanger. Flangers and phasers and stuff do sounds like that. Like on... is it Rilo Kiley, the kind of girl punk band where their guitar always sounds like... wow, 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 wow.
I mean, I know Rilo Kiley, but I don't remember it that well.
That always annoyed me. I hate flangers.
But either way, it kind of works there because he's about to find her. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of like the idea of like, I don't know, how intentional it was, but of this like kind of siren in the back. There she is. We found her kind of thing.
Yeah, a little emergency, a little dis-ease kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. If you want to just keep playing there, because this is where the song shifts. Yeah. So obviously he's met her now. I mean, you can tell by the sound. And it just repeats kind of hypnotically for the rest of that song. In fact, I'd say this whole song, The Fold, is more of like a transition than it is a real song. It's kind of taking us from, him getting there, looking for them, to finding them and being brought in.
Yes.
I guess now's a good time to talk about some of the sexual themes in the album.
I was wondering when we were going to get down. We're in the second song.
So, I mean, literally the lyrics are "come into the fold," which could be taken a couple different ways.
Yes.
If you're tracking, yes, you're not off. And you're going to see that throughout this album, especially in some other songs, really strongly, which I'll be honest, I find fascinating now. Knowing what we know about Mike Bickle and Bob Jones, that Mike Knott did not know at the time, but was just picked up vibes. Like,
why did he?
That is amazing.
Yeah. I wonder what he saw that led him down this path.
I know. I have so many questions and wonders about, like, how did he? Yeah, like, what made him kind of realize this vibe, the undercurrent? Because back in the day when I was more into this stuff, I didn't catch that,
Right. And like, look, a lot of these kinds of charlatan, if he saw through the charlatan thing, a lot of these kinds of things are done for sexual control by people who want to exploit other people for sex and control and things like that, right? And maybe that's just what he was leaning into. So maybe there's not a deeper vision here, but the way he makes it all kind of subtle, like, because almost every time we do a sexual,
every time we do,
almost every time there is a sexual reference in the lyrics here, it is a double entendre, or it's subtle, or it could be, you can interpret it in different directions, It's never just it's never just like, this guy wants you to fuck you kind of thing,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, you're right. It's hidden, but it's pretty interesting. And then I didn't know, it's harder to make it out in the song, but the lyrics, so there's that "come into the fold," and then there's the kind of other female background vocals, and they say, "Your future is ours. I'm your mind in time. Spin the callous wheel. Don't let the coil spoil." And I'll be honest, I don't know what all that means, but when it says "your future is ours," it's very culty, very like, join us now, and it's just
so is "I'm your mind in time."
Yeah, and just that rhythm of the song, you can imagine a wheel spinning around, like hypnotizing people and just bringing them in. Which
is kind of what I want to get into next, which is, should we just read the lyrics first and then get into some of the vibe of the song?
Yeah, because actually I want to focus on something in the first line too. I forgot we haven't read all the lyrics for this, so.
All right, I'll read the lyrics and then we can get into all that. She left me in a basket of rotten, round, bitter balls. And Peckerson is begging to find her. Digging in to find the answers, she's a ditchin'. I think I see her now, she's running to clip me. I think I see her now, she's just singing and staring, wandering around some vines and dirt. She's looking me in the eyes, but she doesn't seem to see me. I can't seem to see her, she's spinning. Come into the fold. Your future is ours. I'm your mind in time. Spin the callous wheel. Don't let the coil spoil.
Okay, even the first line, speaking of sexual, she left me in a basket of rotten, round, bitter balls. Doesn't say oranges. And by the way, nothing rhymes with balls later. There's like no reason to use that word.
Right.
But he does, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Huh. Okay.
So
I'm not sure where that's going, but okay.
I don't know, but I'm going to make it sexual.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and so, it gets a bit trippy here, though, right? Like, I think I see her now. She's running to clip me. What do you think that? Running to clip me? Like to hit me? Like to, like shoulder check me?
Like knocking down or something? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting. Because it feels like an attack. When I first heard the song, I felt like she was coming to attack.
It does. The vibe is definitely that, right?
Right. But then the next line is, I think I see her now. She's just singing and staring, wandering around some vines and dirt. And this is where it starts getting trippy, right? She's looking me in the eyes, but she doesn't seem to see me.
It almost like in my mind, I'm imagining like two things. Like she's running at him crazy, but then at the same time, she's like stopping and spinning out and just like staring off into space. Like,
okay.
Kind of both.
So maybe he felt like she was running towards him, but she really wasn't. She was just
yeah.
Right.
That could be it.
Kind of this this, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of the dancing around and speaking in tongues, kind of out of your mind kind of thing,
Right.
And one of the things I get from this song is that it feels almost transcendental. Like these people have been brought to a higher state, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the subcontext of all of that is that the higher state is, don't think about it.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of disconnect, just unleash from reality and just which is kind of nice, right? Like as a person who lives in a world with too many bad things going on and trying to survive in a society that's, by the way, our society is keenly susceptible to this kind of shit because it's all just like everyone's just trying to manipulate and destroy each other, So anyways,
yeah,
like there's a reason that these kind of things are harder to come by in other less savage societies, right?
Right.
Anyways, but as someone who's just trying to survive, it's very nice to be told, hey, you don't got to worry. Just worry your future, worry your mind in time, which is something that's kind of saying, I think, you don't have to think about it, but also I'm going to say confusing things so that you just, kind of don't worry, kind of just, if you're confused, it just means you need to submit more.
Oh man, that is good. Like, yeah. If you're feeling strange about it, you just got to open up and let God take hold. Yeah. Don't trust your emotions or your senses. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I like the trippy nature of it because this song I think is successful in capturing that feeling to me.
Yeah, I think he does that quite well in a couple places on this album. He kind of nails like the vibe of the story and what he's going for. So agree.
Yeah. Which is why this is one of my more favorite songs on the album.
Yeah.
Anything else about this song?
No, I think we can go to the next one.
All right. Track 4, Wino of the Red is Stained, which is just a...
Yeah, so this is my interpretation. Clifton, tell me if you had it differently. This is what I think is going on at this part of the story. So I think at this point, Ellis has met the woman. He's followed her more into the fold and met more of the folks following the prophet. And I think they seem to be a little drunk on the wine from the vineyard, which of course is a reference to the vineyard church. So that's what I think we're seeing.
The transcendental kind of mindlessness of a bunch of hippies like floating around being like, come in, join us, sit down, like take a load, like come in,
Yeah. Let's just maybe kick it off with listening to the beginning of the song if your computer works, which I can see you not working right now.
Yep. Just be impatient over here. I have other ways of going about it.
All right, Winamp to the rescue, guys. Here comes Winamp.
I told you. Look, Winamp is
reliable.
Is a solid, reliable.
It's been around for about 25 plus years, so
Welcome to the rose of red and green. Open up your mind and leave all reason far behind.
Okay, so this is kind of boppy, right?
Yes.
And it kind of reminds me of what I imagine in my mind is like those like kind of go-go dancers, kind of like bobbing their head back and forth to this. Maybe they've got like a single like ponytail up high and twitching back and forth, or doing the like
our 80s go-go dancers. Remember head top of head ponytails from the 80s?
Yeah, kind of like that. And then they've got like, those times when they do, I don't know, whatever that dance is, and they like cover their nose and put their hand up like they're going underwater and like bouncing back and forth. This is like the vibe.
That's some Austin Powers stuff.
I get, okay. All right. So yeah. A simulacra of the, 50s or whatever. But anyway, that's the vibe I get from this.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, because it's a fun party, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's meant to sound kind of like a fun party, I think, and he's like, empower. And it's just kind of like, it's also really repetitive, which I'm thinking is just kind of to emphasize like hypnosis and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun. You kind of, and I'll talk a little bit about the lyrics because you kind of already played part of it, but he says, "Hello, Ellis. Welcome to the rose of red and green. Open up your mind and leave all reason far behind." So like we were just talking about, that kind of the idea of like, just go with it, man. Just come here, just absorb it, just go with it.
Yeah, God's not a God of reason. God is above this world. You think that you understand things, you don't understand anything. Let me tell you. In Job, God said, "How dare you ask me to submit to like your rules about things?" Like, right? Like, I mean, come on. God is above this world. He has an understanding of things that you can't even begin to comprehend. So you need to understand that first thing you have to do is just give up your understanding.
Yeah. So when he says wino of the red is stained, I don't know exactly what he means. I mean, I assume wino is like a wino, like somebody drinking too much wine. I don't fully understand what it means. It's technically not in the lyrics, even though he sings it over and over in this. But yeah, at one point, at about 2 minutes and 14 seconds in it, all the music cuts out, and it's just those weird Mike Knott vocals saying "Wino of the red is stained," but then everything else kind of builds back in. Yeah, so it's a fun song. It's weird. If this, like I said, this is the first time you ever heard anything from this album, you'd be like, "What the hell is this?" Like I was as a youngster. But yeah, it's fun. What'd you think?
Jay, I like this song. I do because it's just more upbeat, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like more Mike type of thing, you know, bop 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 kind of thing, you know. Tell us a little bit about when you go to, for example, if you go to the house of prayer, what do you encounter if you walk in?
I mean, it depends on the time, but like, as in going stuff like this, I mean, there would definitely be kind of like really emotional times where people are caught up in like different types of worship and stuff. So there could be dancing,
music.
There could be, there's almost always music going. There could be dancing, weird dancing, people with flags and stuff. There can be people falling over, people rolling around on the ground, like just all kinds of different stuff. And there was a time period, and I think he's hinting at it in this, but it's interesting because this is a little pre that movement. But like, when they called it the Toronto Blessing, when it happened to the Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship, which I think was in 94 when that happened, the like big revival up there. One of the things that happened is like people would talk about getting like drunk in the spirit. And so they would talk about like, they would use the language of like alcohol and being drunk, but to symbolize the way they felt like supposedly from God or the Holy Spirit. And so you would get a little bit of this of like, just take a drink, that kind of thing.
That wasn't unique. That wasn't the first time that happened with those Latin language or that kind of thing. Because there's a production being put on.
Yeah.
There's music and there's literally people in charge of creating that atmosphere.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've both talked about how, there were times I think I felt like I felt God in a worship service. And then, after that, I've gone to whatever concert and felt the same feelings, sometimes even stronger, and been like, oh, that's just music.
Right. Yes. But these kind of, I think that what's going on with the Kansas City Prophets was kind of leaders in using music and it kind of comes out of like the Pentecostal movement, that kind of stuff, but really using like what we know are emotionally moving chord progressions and things like that, just to manipulate and to create this atmosphere of otherworldliness, of higherness, of all that, right? Which is not even new to music. Like literally cathedrals were built with the express purpose, like they said it, of the height representing the power of God and like to make you feel that there's this whole thing above you, right? Like if you've ever been into a cathedral and you can't see this, if you can see the ceiling first off, that's not how it was meant to be perceived, because that's just because we have lights today,
Yeah. It's
meant to rise above you in this way that you can't, like it's way up there, right? And so like, humans have been doing this forever, right? But this is very specifically being used by these people who are creating a feeling, creating a presence, creating a something in you to open up to what's going to happen in the next song.
Yeah, and I want to say, I hadn't really thought of it that way, Clifton, but it's a great example of the cathedrals, because if you're living 400 years ago and coming from your like fucking like thatched roof house or like whatever, even worse, like, people were not living well back then. And then going to the cathedral, it must have seemed like just fucking amazing. I mean, I'm still impressed by cathedrals today you walk in, so I cannot imagine back then.
They're still engineering marvels, yes.
Yeah. And so to experience that must have made you feel like, oh, this is definitely God, and kind of heightens all your senses of things. And I think you're right. It's the same thing that's happening here.
Right. So. The light coming in through the stained glass, you've never seen, literally there's like one of these per nation, basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you see this once or twice in your life. It is an otherworldly experience.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Should I read the lyrics for this one?
Yeah.
So this says, "Hello, Ellis. Welcome to the rows of red and green." Obviously being, grapes. "Open up your mind and leave all reason far behind." And then he says, "Empower. Your aura shines just like a fire that is soon to dim. Here comes your prophet now. Just take a drink. We'll show you how."
Power.
Power. Then he says, "One glass and you will learn the future stories soon to come. And when you get to 3, you'll find the paths that set you free."
Power.
So it is the idea of like drinking deeply of this and getting knowledge and wisdom and understanding of all these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Drink deep of the Spirit.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And like I said, I think this is an emotional manipulation, honestly, in preparation for the prophet to speak. It's right there. Here comes a prophet now. Just take a drink. We'll show you how.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yep. Any I think actually there's an interesting in the re-release liner notes, there is a little section on this song. So 2 minutes into "Wino of the Red is Stained," all of the instruments drop out, and it's just Knott's voice, stretched and distended as if he's wailing at the top of his lungs while walking through a wind tunnel, repeating the title phrase over and over.
Yeah.
It's
weird. It's creepy.
Yeah.
It's got weird vibes.
Yeah. They call it, a little earlier, they call it exorcist-like effect for the vocals.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we move on to the next track, Jay?
Yeah, this is an important one, Clifton. This is number 5, "The Grape Prophet Speaks." Let's just play the intro because this is kind of fun. This is like feels almost like a church service a little bit.
The only thing when I do like tea, I always miss it.
Blossoms will be suckled unto their heirs, find lifted shelter and no abominations within the filtered soil of the trodden grove.
What he's saying is that we here in this body will be lifted up and be set apart from all other bodies of the following.
That's half the song.
Yeah.
We should just listen to the other half in a little bit.
It's short. It's kind of another transition song, but it's kind of fun. First of all, I don't know that there's any direct guitar in the song. There might be a little bit of effects or something somewhere, but it seems like it's kind of that like keyboard with the rest of the band. And it's obviously you can hear the applause and stuff. It's meant to kind of sound more like you're in the service. And so that first part, the little bit of higher pitched voice, is Steve Hindalong, who produced a ton of albums we've talked about. It was in the band The Choir.
Drummer.
Yeah, he sang kind of the weird prophet stuff at the beginning, and then Mike Knott comes in after that and translates. So just to put this in real life, the prophet is Bob Jones, and the translation is Mike Bickle, who we'll hear a little bit more from in the next song too. But it's all spoken word throughout, this. And after the translation, each time there's that applause that you heard. And then the chorus, if you could call it that, is this female vocals after that saying, "He's a sensation,"
And I feel like it's like that keyboard is being played, literally while the prophecy is going on and then it's interpreted. And then you sing a little worship thing, but the worship is to the prophet,
Yep.
not to, yeah.
I think that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we listen to the rest of
Yeah,
it?
play the rest, and then I'm going to play us a real clip of Mike
Okay.
Bickle and Bob Jones.
Such a sensation.
I was there and he was here. We sat together and we supped, one with another, breaking bread. As he opened gold tablets and he told me secrets that I can't tell.
Basically, what he's saying is that he had an encounter. He had lunch with Jesus.
Such a sensation.
It's going to flow into the next song, so we'll stop there.
Let's read the lyrics, then I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to read them again?
I'll do it.
Okay.
All right. All the blues and lavenders, blossoms will be suckled onto their heirs, and find lifted shelter and no abominations within the filtered soil of the trodden grove. What he's saying is that here in this body we will be lifted up and be set apart from all other bodies of followers. He's a sensation. I was there and he was here. We sat together and we supped, one with another, breaking bread as he opened gold tablets, and he told me secrets that I can't tell. Basically, what he's saying is he had an encounter. He had lunch with Jesus.
Yeah.
He's a sensation.
Yeah, so, this is supposed to be like Bob Jones talking, Mike Bickle interpreting, and I, especially that second part where I was there and he was here, we sat together and we supped. I was like, man, Mike Knott remembered this pretty well, because that sounds exactly like the shit
Yes.
Bob Jones would say. Like, and we're going to play you a little bit of actually Bob Jones and Mike Bickle. This is just off YouTube. You can go and listen to it. But like, Bob Jones, that Southern accent, like it fits. He nails it pretty well. He had a very good memory of this encounter.
Which is part of what gets me is like, did he really only encounter this once and then he just went and...
I mean, maybe if it was really fucking weird and like, those moments when you've gone through something really weird and it was only
Yeah.
once, but it like really is crystal clear in your mind.
Yeah, but a lot of times I have a hard time remembering the exact words because I'm like, that was fucking stupid.
Yeah, fair. But maybe he had some friends there and together they were able to like
Maybe so,
piece
yeah.
it together. So this is like I'll say this is just a clip out of something, and it may not be the best one, but I wasn't going to listen to this whole thing for like 2 hours. So I thought this kind of encapsulate. You're going to hear Bob Jones at first, and you're going to hear Mike Bickle come in after him.
Well, when I went to the Lord on that, I turned my face to the wall and I said, Lord, that hurt too bad. I want to come home. When them young people died, it hurt me too bad on the inside. And then when they really dealt with me there, I had to fight rejection like you wouldn't believe. So I just told the Lord, I'm going to turn my face to the wall and come home.
You just gave up.
What?
You just gave up.
I totally gave up. And I said, I have no purpose down here. And he come and he called me a coward.
Oh, really? I mean, he really did.
Yep. And he said, you're a self-centered coward. And you ain't got the guts to face the day. I'm going to raise a body up. Now turn over here. I'm going to ride on your head.
I mean, the Lord deals with Bob. Even the Lord's dealings with Bob is all in a parable. I mean, it's always just like this.
Yeah, but this was a real thing, too. I was there.
I told you about that. Now, Bob, it was a vision, wasn't it?
Nope. I was there. He took his hand, his finger, and he wrote on my forehead in Hebrew. And I didn't know what it meant, but I remember the letters, and I saw it in the book later. And it said, Exodus 28:36, holy unto the Lord. And he said, as I wrote on your head, you write on others that come after you. For I give you the commission to write on the body's head. In Exodus 28:36, it's the gold.
I mean, you're getting a little bit of the vibe, right? Bob Jones says a bunch of weird shit. Mike tries to kind of make
Took
it
his finger.
sound more normal. Of course, in this case, he was like, "You're speaking in parables, right?" No, it was real.
Can I make a side quest here?
Please.
I enjoy things like this because he says he wrote on my head in Hebrew, right? So modern day Hebrew is not, ancient Hebrew of 2,000 years ago, right? It's not entirely dissimilar. They use the same alphabet, I think, or not. It's not an alphabet because it doesn't have vowels, whatever that's called. But if the Bible was written in the time frame that it claims to have been written in, then it would have been written in a Phoenician script, okay, not in the script of Hebrew that we know today is from Arabic, okay. And maybe Phoenician's the wrong one, but anyways, it was the script that they used at the time that the Bible would have been written, if it was written at the time that it said it was written, is not the script that we know today as Hebrew, okay? Now, the Bible wasn't written then. It was written in the script that we know as Hebrew today because it was all written after the Babylonian Exodus, right? When they came back under the Persians. And which is when they adopted that script. But anyways, I just like that because if he wrote on your head in Hebrew, well, which Hebrew, right? Like which Hebrew script, and why the new one? Why not the one that the Bible was originally written in? If it was written in the time that it says it was written in, which there's very little Hebrew in that script because it was just a backwater where nobody wrote anything down because they were fucking backwater people.
Well, also, like, how did he see what was written? He doesn't talk about a mirror. And then also, like, he said, I just remembered it and saw it in a book later. I'm sorry, but, like, languages I don't know in, like, scripts that I don't know, I'm not going to remember what it looks like as much as I want to try because I have nothing to, like, hang that onto in my mind. So, anyway.
Right. And it's something that complicates, something that people try to make like history very simple and like, oh, God was there, and if English was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me, right? When this is all far more complicated, and it's like, well, why that? Yeah. Anyways, it's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, getting back to it, you see how this works. In fact, that clip, and we'll link to it, is supposedly from 1989, which might have been about the time period Mike Knott encountered this, and supposedly I think it's from the vineyard in California, so it might have even been like the same session. I don't know, but it's definitely the same vintage. So you're getting the feel of what he kind of experienced in the service. And there's about an hour, and there's two parts to that. It's about an hour and a half total. So knock yourself out if you want to like really get the vibes for this album.
And why would anyone believe that Bob Jones has personal experiences with God in a way that is completely foreign to anything that anyone else sitting in the audience has ever experienced?
I will tell you, Clifton, because a couple things. They believe that there are all those different offices or gifts or whatever you're going to call it of like apostle, prophet, teacher, evangelist, all that. So they believe that there's still prophets. So there's that. They also believe that idea of like, and I'm butchering this verse or wherever this comes from, but like God will use the foolish things of the world to shame the wise or whatever. So
Yes, the Trump.
yeah,
the
so
Trump
yeah,
verse.
exactly. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. It's the same justification they use with Trump, right? So it's like this guy that does not at all seem wise or like you should listen to, but this is God's chosen voice. So that,
Which, if you can,
I know. You could see Clifton's face right now.
these
y'all.
people
He's
want to be
frustrated.
abused. These people want to be abused. Like, there's how.
And I will say this too, to be fair, when you, especially like with Mike Bickle, when you hear him tell, the problem is it's all in hindsight, but when you hear him tell of these earlier experiences and these things God told him that later came true, he's convincing. And honestly, I think he believes it. I actually don't think he's like trying to mislead. I think he's misled and he believes it, and
Correct.
he's just misleading others. And so when he shares this stuff, if you, and those of you that are listening to this and have been there and heard this, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe from some other teacher, like it's pretty convincing. And because you want to believe it, there you go.
So this leads me to the second part of my question. The gall, the self-importance of believing that you've been chosen by God among all the people to lead the revolution, the coming of the new age of the church, or however you want to phrase this, right? To bring the people of God back to God. Like, to have that kind of self-confidence is foreign to me.
I agree. And I think it's also like, it's very interesting to me that this seems to be such an American phenomenon, right?
Yes.
I'm sure this probably does happen in other cultures, but what you mostly see is American prophets and apostles and teachers of this stature, right? Because, why not? That totally fits the American vibe.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's how you get it a little bit, is this America first, all this, and it just bleeds over into this garbage.
Yeah. This is off topic, Jay.
Clifton, like we're always directly on topic on this podcast.
Okay. My parents visited last weekend or the weekend before, I can't remember. Weekend before last. And my dad and I it was during may have been 3 weeks ago, because it was during the Sweet Six, what is the 8? Whatever there is.
Elite 8, does that sound right?
Elite 8, yes, okay. Do you know March Madness, Elite 8 part? Okay. And we were watching all the basketball games, and a big part of basketball that makes it unwatchable for me is the overacting of people, like, oh, I got checked and it threw me 20 feet across the floor.
You must have never watched soccer then.
Soccer's the worst. Soccer's worse, right? Yes. This doesn't exist much in football. It's a little bit, but not anywhere to the extremes of soccer and basketball, right? But anyways, the point is that my dad and I got talking, and he had recently, accidentally, been watching Australian rules football. Okay?
I'm really wondering where this is going, but okay.
You're going to love this. And in Australian rules football, if you do that shit, they have a penalty called fibbing. Okay? So if you try to act your way into a penalty, they will call a penalty on you for fibbing to the refs, basically, okay? And my dad and I were talking about how great that is. And I fucking love this. I love that there's a fibbing penalty. And I wish that we had that in American sports, because American sports are so American, and soccer does this too, which is really maybe ruins my example a little bit. But without a fibbing rule, right? It's basically just like, who can subvert reality enough to twist the rules to their favor? And if that isn't a perfect encapsulation of where we are today, success isn't doing good things for society. Success is fooling everyone into trusting you and giving you money. That's Donald Trump, right? Like the Trump years are just being gaslit, right? The Trump years are Donald Trump saying, "Oh, I didn't do that. Well, I mean, I did it, but like, who cares, right? Like, in fact, I'm a hero for doing it. Like, if anything, I'm a hero for breaking the rules that we all agreed to play by because it benefited me. And you know what? Fuck everyone else."
Yeah.
Right? I wish that we had a fibbing rule in American sports. That's all. That's the same thing here, though, right? This is just who can subvert reality to make things go in their favor. That's what this prophet shit is too. Yeah. Who can subvert other people's perception of reality, which means you're gaslighting them, which means you're basically saying them, you can't trust your lying eyes.
That's absolutely true.
You got to trust me, which means that like you separate people from their own sense of reality. And as having had that done to me because I grew up in the church and there's no other way to exist in the fucking church. Fuck, like how do you recovering from that takes a fucking lifetime.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, you're exactly right.
All right. And then my dad told me that we were talking about something and then I mentioned something about someone with Trump flags in their yards and he was like, sounds like my kind of person. And I wanted to be like, okay, the only way you can support Trump is if you support fucking abuse of other people because you fucking hate them so much that you only fucking care about yourself and your fucking team.
And we just lost half our listeners. I'm just
fuck them.
I knew he'd say that. I'm just kidding.
If you support Trump, you're the same thing as these fucking prophets.
Ooh, we got some spicy takes from Clifton tonight.
That's just like, tell me I'm wrong.
I'm with you. All right.
All right. That pause was Jay taking a drink of water, by the way.
Well, speaking...
Okay. Should we move on to the next
speaking
song?
of kind of making the unpalatable palatable or something.
So this is track 6, English Interpreter of English.
On the album, this kind of just, it's like bleeds into this from the previous song. So like if you were just listening, you wouldn't even like kind of know it had switched tracks other than just the vibe changes a little bit.
Let me push play.
Yeah, let's play the beginning.
This is still the end of the previous song, by the way.
Yeah, honestly, sonically, I think this is my favorite song. I just kind of like the vibe on the song and the way it sounds.
Kind of the 70s trippy rock kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got that distorted
The
guitar.
Doors.
It's got a shaker that comes in.
Little Beatles. I am the English Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell what the song is about, right? English interpreter of English. It's what Mike Bickle was doing for Bob Jones, for the Grape Prophet in this, but I kind of like, it's got a little swagger in there. It like at the end of the first verse, it's like a minute and 2 seconds in. He says, "Yeah," at the end of it. And I kind of imagine that's how Mike Bickle was acting at the time, like with a little bit of swagger, like, "Oh, I got brought all the way out here to California to help explain these prophets to you all." Like,
Big time.
I'm big
shot
time
now.
man. Yeah, exactly.
Interpreter of English. When the great prophet speaks, I tell you what he says.
It's a little high on his own supply there.
Yeah, but I'm kind of liking the vibe of the song, to be honest. Like, this is definitely when I played a lot in the car driving. I was like, yeah, so pretty into it. The bridge of the song also gets a little jammy. Like, they kind of do a little jam band stuff in here. And then they kind of, when they end the song, they just close out with, "I'll tell you what he says," just repeated. But it's kind of a fun little jam right here in like the middle of the album for sure.
So, Jay, once again, why don't I read these lyrics and then you tell us what they mean?
Oh, okay. I'm excited.
I am the English interpreter of English. When the Grape Prophet speaks, I tell you what he says. He speaks in riddles, so it's hard to understand him. He speaks in poetry that only I can bend. He speaks in parables because Christ is so much like him. And when the Grape Prophet speaks, I tell you what he says.
I mean, I think no interpretation necessary, but I did like that one line. Of course, he speaks in parables because Christ is so much like him.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. So this song, I like the vibe of it. It's fun. It's also really takes no interpretation. The lyrics are just right there. You know what it means. And yeah. So to jump back to our story, Ellis is there. He has now listened to the Grape Prophet speak. He's had some interpretation. And the next song is called Ellis Speaks with Prophet. So he's about to actually directly interact with them.
Ooh, nice. This is going to get good.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go there, Jay, in Mark, Jesus speaks in riddles because he can't, he can't just say the truth out loud because that's too dangerous. Right. So he's got to speak in parables to the people. And then when they're in private sometimes, not always, but sometimes he reveals the truth of the meaning to his disciples. Do you think that has any parallel here where maybe people who manipulate other people like to make them feel special by doing this kind of bullshit?
You mean like secret knowledge kind of thing? Special ones can get it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't.
Should we get into secret, Mark?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this is nothing to do with that.
Nothing like that. All right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, personally, I'm giving Mark a hard time here. I think Mark is a literary creation that is honestly not. It's rough, but it's kind of fun. It's fun in what it does, with all of this, hiding the truth and ending with the the women finding the tomb empty, but they don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think Mark is a fun story. Everything happened after that is not great, but you know, that's fine. All right.
All right.
Track 7, Jay.
Ellis
speaks with the prophets.
Boom.
Getting into it.
Let's just start it off. Let's see what the vibe is on this one.
Get your axe, get them fire gone. Mix it up with the princess bean. Make it only understand standable by the ones who lift it higher. So high, so high. She's from a string full of assassin scene. Make it bigger, make it sense.
Yeah, so it's got kind of more of like an darker, ominous sound again. You know, you're kind of
Mhm.
back in that vibe of like foreboding, a little bit just stranger vibe here.
Yeah. But it's still kind of trippy, still a little off kilter.
Mhm.
I really like his vocals there.
Yeah. You got this weird vibe, and it's if you haven't caught it yet, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but there's lots of sexual imagery in this song. So we'll hit it more in a minute. But you know, maybe if we can jump to the chorus, because it's this loud, almost yelling part that well, maybe we'll just play it. You'll see what it sounds like.
Make it big and make it so big. Don't forget, step in the fire, jump in the cream. I'm raining in oil from the risen core of the city.
Yeah, so it the chorus is kind of this weird vibe, and just as the song goes on, it's more of that. The bridge just kind of repeats some earlier parts. There's no vocals, but the song ends with that chorus, and it's just vocals, like nothing else is the way the song ends, and it's definitely got a weird vibe to it for sure.
Here I come. Open wide your door for me. I'm just a figure from the orange core. Let me fast, listen. Listen, shit, when I'm hungry, tired. All my life is in your mouth. I'm just kidding, she's a
All right, so I'm going to read the chorus right now. We could talk about the rest of the lyrics too, but the chorus is step in the fire, jump in the cream. I'm reading an aura from the risen core of the syphilis scene. So yes, some sexual imagery there. There's more in the song. There's more in the next one. But lots of weird ass vibes going on here.
All right, let me do all the lyrics here.
Do it.
Get your rocks, get them far, far gone. Mix it up with the prince's plea. Make it only understandable by the ones who are lifted high, so high, chosen with strength for the sights unseen. Make it bigger, make it so, so big. Don't forget the Jesus thing. Step in the fire, jump in the cream. I'm reading an aura from the risen core of the syphilis scene. Kansas City, here I come. Open wide your door for me. I'm just a picker from the orange grove, let me find this blessed wine. It's a shame you're not hungry and tired of my life that's in your mouth. Just kidding, just fooling. Couldn't follow you to itchy ear binds.
So the first line you read is, get your rocks, get them far, far gone. I mean, if you hear get your rocks off, like...
Right.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that came to mind for me
right.
also.
And then mix it up with the Prince's Plea, which I'm assuming is like something from the Prince of Peace, Jesus. Make it only understandable by the ones who are lifted high. And then he says, so high, which, can go both ways. Chosen with strengths for the sight unseen. Make it bigger, make it so big, which again, I think can be kind of a double entendre. Don't forget the Jesus thing. Step in the fire, jump in the cream. I mean, it's just like, also the line where he says, Kansas City, here I come, open wide your door for me. I mean, there's just a lot of sexual innuendo in here.
Yes. It's a shame you're not hungry and tired of my life that's in your mouth. Just kidding. Just fooling.
Yeah. So,
which is how a lot of this, like, a lot of the, if you're familiar with these kind of things, a lot of times people will brush off. Oh, you thought I was making a sexual pass? No, you misunderstood me. I was joking around,
point,
or you
Clifton.
just,
Yeah. And again, now that we know what we know about Mike Bickle and even Bob Jones,
Yes.
He does follow. On the last line, he says, "Couldn't follow you to itchy ear binds," and this is not original. I got this from the lyrics on Genius, but somebody pointed out that 2 Timothy 4:3-4 says, "For the time is coming when people will not put up with sound doctrine, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own desires, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander away to myths." Which I was like, okay, that's a pretty good reference.
It is. But also it's another verse that you could make for anything, right?
True.
Oh, you don't want to listen to the prophets? It's because, you know why? Because everyone just wants to find something that's going to make them feel good.
And you
can do it for anything.
And you have itchy ears.
Me too. My ears, because it's the headphones.
All
right.
So this is like, again, this is called Ellis Speaks with Prophets. And there's definitely a lot of weird sexual vibes going on in this song.
Yeah, he got a weird vibe off them. Cool.
We do the next one?
Track 8. A group of prophets predict the picker's future without
So
them.
before we go into this, I want to read...
This is important.
I'm going to read you a little bit from that J. Edward Keyes liner notes piece, because I think this really helps. So this is from what he wrote. He said, "The whole thing is run backwards, making Knott's voice feel inhumanly elongated and rendering Cummings' rhythms alien and occultish. I remember being in the studio," Cummings says, and he goes, "I want you to play the rhythm this way." And he counted it out for me. And I said, "Mike, that's not going to work." But just to humor him, I did it. Then he got into the booth and ran the tape backwards, and it was perfect. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But that's the genius of Mike Knott. The song's sickening sound mirrors its subject matter. Big hooker on Sunset Boulevard, nice porno queen in a leotard, Knott howls. I'm a king from Kansas City. I love holy women that are pretty. You could have been one on a video. You could have been in my strip show. That really happened, Knott said. The prophet, the guy who was interpreting him, and all these other dudes, all dudes, by the way, told all of my wife's girlfriends that that's what would happen to them if they didn't follow the prophets. They'd be Sunset Boulevard hookers. These girls are 20 years old at the time. Who would say that to someone? And then J. Edward Keyes says, the song is made creepier by the fact that Knott, portraying the character of the prophet, sings with an exaggerated leer in his voice. So yeah, let's check it out. Yeah, so weird, right?
Mhm.
And you heard most of the lyrics. I think the only part that I didn't read from the quote earlier was what that last part you played in there, where it said, "What you would have been if you did not come," meaning like if you didn't come to this meeting, these are the things you would have been, like the hooker, the porno queen, and stuff. But then, of course, also there's a double entendre with what you would have been if you did not come. So again, lots of sexual imagery in this. It kind of just repeats, like those are all the lyrics to the song. But I was wondering if you could skip ahead to like 225-ish, because there's this like heavy breathing part that gets kind of creepy too. So, I mean, I just want to stress, this is 1992. And this is making it onto Christian bookstore shelves. Like, wow.
Yeah. So, Bob Jones and Mike Bickle kind of got in trouble for this kind of thing. Like, literally got called out, even within their own scene, for making these really in-depth kind of manipulative prophecies about people. I think we talked. We talked. We don't have to get into it here because we talked about it on the House of Prayer. Whatever. What do we call that one?
It's the episode we did on Patreon, but I think it's available for everybody.
Yeah. It's on Patreon, but it's free. Like you can just go there and listen to it. So we talked about that there, but they got in trouble for this kind of thing, got called out even within their own group of profiting or prophesying people. Yeah. But it's gross.
Yeah. I mean, he does a good job. This is another one where I think he does a great job with the sound, right? Like he's running it backwards. It's really weird. I didn't get it till I read that. I was like, oh, it's backwards. I was trying to figure out like, what is that sound I'm hearing? But like, okay, it's the drums run backwards. So it's like, it's kind of unsettling. You're trying to figure out what you're actually hearing. And
kind of sounds like a squeaky bed a little bit.
Yeah.
Something
what?
squeaky.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah. It's a weird vibe.
And the what you would have been if you did not come thing, it's very reminiscent of this idea of, well, Mike got in trouble for kind of telling people that his wife was going to die, and that
Mike Bickle.
Mike Bickle, yeah. He would tell women that his wife was going to die and that God told him that he was going to end up with them, so it's not so bad that we kind of like get a head start on things,
Right.
But some people, their kind of aim at this is, well, men have these desires, and isn't it better that this desire be kept within the church than for me to go out and fulfill this desire that all men have outside the church?
Yeah.
So, it's good that you're here. If you hadn't come here, you would have just been a prostitute, but you're here. And so like God gave you to me to use to,
right.
Use, literally use.
Yeah.
Like a fuck doll. That's what I mean, Jay.
Yeah, I got it, Clifton. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gross.
All right. Moving on to track 9. She Said.
So this, as you can tell by the title, this is what I assume to be the woman that's kind of in this story of like what she's saying at this point. He's heard from the prophets. He's heard them say what would happen to these people if they hadn't come to them. And now what's she actually saying? Yeah, so it's like, I don't know if you noticed, but the verses are pretty slowed down. They're pretty easy to understand what he's saying. And then the chorus, like that you play at the end, is faster, and it's kind of like a different, higher vocal style from Mike. And the we'll read the lyrics in a minute, but the vibe of the song is basically this: it's the woman talking in the verses, and then Ellis or Mike's response is the chorus. And the verses are kind of slower, like kind of like a hypnotic pace, while the chorus is sped up, where I felt like it was kind of like Ellis frantically saying, like, "Why are you doing this?" But yet she just keeps going back to it in the verses.
Mm-hmm. Should we just talk about the lyrics?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me read them here. Take my body, it's ready to be crushed. Slip me in between your toes. Take my mind, it's ready to be drunk. Slide me under your tongue, she said. I don't know why you only listen to the lie. I don't know why doing the sooth to suicide. Back to the verse here, so we're quoting. Take my legs, they're ready to lay down. Twisted in the rooted soil. Take my arms, I'm ready to be born. Go on with things, I'm a seed, she said. I don't know why you only listen to the lie. I don't know why you doing the sooth to suicide. I don't know why you only listen to the lie.
And that last line you read is actually the last lyric on the album, because the last song is Back to the Orchard next, and it's instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really interesting. The last thing it said is, I don't know why you only listen to the lie. So it becomes very clear, like, what Ellis's feelings for this are.
Let's get to that in a second.
Okay.
I want to, yeah. I have a whole question.
Oh, sorry. I jumped ahead. Go ahead.
You jumped ahead.
Sorry.
All right. So take my body, it's ready to be crushed. Slip me between your toes. That brings like heroin, like injecting heroin type thing.
Ooh,
to
I hadn't
me.
thought of that.
What
I
were
was
you-
thinking more of like the Eucharist or something, like the Lord. So, like this is my body broken for you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Take my mind, it's ready to be drunk. You could go with the Eucharist there too, but it could be drinking. Because then the next one is slide me under your tongue, which like acid.
Okay, I see that. So
like
like
a little
drugs
acid trip.
and like the kind of like, communion.
I don't know. It's just it's very carnal, right? It's very, which is kind of weird, by the way, because like Mike Knott did drugs. Okay.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
First
yeah.
off. I mean, in these liner notes, in the liner notes of the re-release, it talks about he literally at one point proposes that they do mushrooms and record a song. Okay. Anyways, but the next verse is, this one's far more sexual. Take my legs, they're ready to lay down, twisted in the rooted soil. Take my arms, I'm ready to be born. Go on with things, I'm a seed.
Yeah, and it's interesting coming from the song before, right? It's like this woman is just fully like giving herself over to this, which is like, I think she thinks it's God, but it's apparent to us that like she's just giving herself over to this charlatan.
Right, which is a good point, right? Because you think that you're saying, oh, I'm open to God, but really what you're saying is I'm open to the prophet, and so it's really them that's controlling you. And using you for their own pleasure and all that kind of stuff. Carnal desires.
Right, exactly.
And then, like you said, Ellis wonders, why are you only listening to the lie? Why are you doing this suicide thing?
Yeah, it's clear at the end that, he's not buying into this from it, even though she has. And again, the last song is called Back to the Orchard, and we don't know like if anyone's going with him or he's just going by himself, but it's clear that he's left.
What do you think? What was your first interpretation without reading anything about this? What did you think was
honestly happening? That it's just him. I think he's like, I'm out of here. It seems like everyone else that was kind of bought into it.
Yeah. I had the same interpretation.
So, sadly.
Okay. Dark
I did find it weird that I will be honest, I don't know if you felt this way. I was like, oh, weird. The last song, like you've done this whole rock opera thing, and the last song is an instrumental going back. Like, I don't know if he ran out of, because it's a pretty short album actually. It's like only like 38 minutes
like that
or something. Like, but like, did you run out of time or money or something? Like, it would have been nice to have one final song. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's denying us that. I mean, especially because this is a Christian album, supposedly, and so you're like, there's got to be salvation at the end.
You're right, but maybe it's just like, oh, this is fucked up, I'm leaving, but like, damn, this is bad. And you're right, maybe that's the best way to end it. I don't know, but yeah.
There is a small part of me that just looks at him like, and knows who Mike Knott is. I'm like, oh, he's kind of a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Maybe he gave up on the album,
That's true.
But then he also came in, he seemed to come in fully developed, also at the same time. Like,
yeah, there's a lot going on this. Yeah, he's thought through a lot of this.
It's hard to believe that he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
Well, Jay, what are your thoughts overall?
Clifton, I really liked this. I think part of it is just probably because I went through IHOP and stuff, so I like feel a little bit more personal connection to this. And now that I know what it's about, I'm like, oh shit, this is really fun to listen to. I'm very curious how this. I would love to talk to somebody that heard this back in the day and only had that little tiny paragraph inside.
Right.
Because I imagine if you were a hardcore Mike Knott fan and you kind of dove into this, then as more of the truth trickled out, you were probably like, oh, like this became really fascinating. But it's a little confusing when you don't know the story. But I think this album is pretty like interesting because he's got tons of stuff going on here. The music is all over the place, but in like a good way. It's, I love like the double entendres in the lyrics. In fact, I'm a little shocked he was able to get this through the Christian bookstores.
Did he?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
I this was right at the time like the label was kind of not getting distributed. So, but like it wasn't because of this. It was just like the timing.
Right, yeah, no, there's a story in the liner in the re-release liner notes that tells.
But even like I'm gonna jump to like the cover art. Like even the artwork is pretty interesting. Like what do you make? What do you make of the cover art of like the original one?
So it's a picture of kind of like a yellow and orange kind of toned picture of a woman's face with her mouth open. We're really close, really close. And there's something that maybe is a grape that's kind of on this amulet thing right in front of her mouth. It's highly suggestive. It's
oh my god,
very sexual. I mean, like sexual in the kind of way that like moms are mad that there's like an attractive woman on the cover of an album, kind of, just like it's her mouth is open, Jay. I mean, come on. Like what else are you going to do with an open mouth if you're a woman? You're going to put a dick in it. Like, sorry, but that's just that's all women do with open mouths.
And the grape's over it, but it's also the grape is kind of hanging like from
the
four
amulet.
Places, like so it's almost like a bullseye over her mouth. And also I felt like that kind of thing was implying like BDSM or something. Like it's just got this like different vibe. You're right, it's very sexual.
These are guitar
strings.
Like,
okay, that makes more sense. I was wondering what that was.
Interesting. The amulet is made out of guitar strings, everybody.
Okay, that's holding, and that's probably guitar strings that are holding even the grape. But so it's like, yeah, it's this weird, like very sexual looking thing. I don't love the font on the cover, but I also know they made it in 92, so whatever. But like the picture is provocative. And really fits with the album like very, very well. So yeah, so overall, like also I thought the recording quality sounded pretty damn good for 92, and the fact that they kind of probably did this on a relatively small budget. Like
yes, it's Mike Knott. It was done on a small budget.
Yeah, so like I'm pretty into this. Like it's weird, right? It's a rock opera, so it's not like straight ahead the songs are a little harder to relate to sometimes.
Yeah.
But overall, like, I was pleasantly surprised by this, and I really enjoyed it, like, knowing the story behind it. Like,
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed listening to it.
I agree. So 32 years on, I enjoyed it. Right. I enjoyed sitting here this evening and speculating over song meanings, right?
Yeah.
Because we can look back on it and understand what it's about. That may have been fun at the time also, to sit around in a circle and, smoke some pot or take mushrooms and speculate on song meanings, In the re-release liner notes, there's a lot of, like, Chris Colbert talks a lot about how, like, Mike Knott's a genius and he understood the Christian music market, and all this kind of stuff. And in many ways he did, like when getting Blonde Vinyl out there. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but Mike, you didn't smack anyone upside the head. Like, we're Christians. We're not going to try. You need to smack us upside the head. Am I wrong?
So you think, like, this was requiring too much of the listener?
Yes.
And most Christians wouldn't have, like...
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Like,
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm saying that the market was not.
Oh, the market was definitely not ready for this.
Right.
Like, I'm very curious sales numbers on this. I'm sure
Right.
they were tiny.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely not ready for this. But it was kind of cool though that he's out there putting this out. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. I mean, he seems way ahead of his time, especially for that market. I mean, he's not ahead of his time as far as the general existence of music goes.
No, but for this type of thing, for sure. And I also think way ahead of his time in that, like, he saw through this
Yes.
bullshit like 30 years before most other people. Well, not most other people, but for a lot of other people did.
Bob Jones did get caught.
Yeah. Not long after this, or around maybe the same time this album came out.
Yeah. So let me see here. Crap. Everything's just going to come up with Bob Jones University.
Mm-hmm.
No, Metro Vineyard, Kansas City, 1991.
So we don't know if this had been recorded yet or written yet.
Yeah, November 13th, 1991. Bob Jones removed after confession of sexual misconduct. So this came out in November 13th, 1991.
Okay. And this album came out in 92, so I'm not sure if they knew about this yet when they recorded it or not. But,
Yeah. Probably. I mean, it's probably happening around the same time. Yeah.
right.
Who knows if he'd already written it, right? But, yeah.
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 Yeah. So I'm just astonished, like, that, he saw this and made it so clear, especially the sexual nature. It'd be one thing to say, like, these guys are frauds and charlatans, but to nail that kind of stuff is pretty interesting.
I agree. Yeah. And I still love the English interpreter of English. It's a great concept.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, he does a really good job.
Yeah. Well, all right, Jay, anything else on this album, or should we go into the Where Are They Now?
Yeah, let's jump ahead.
All right, where's Mike Knott? Oh, that's a bad question.
Oh, Jesus, Clifton. Asshole. All right, I'm just going to read what I took notes on, and we'll, God, maybe we'll forgive you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a Grape Prophet for forgiveness. Ellis Underground, or LSU as they're also called, continued after this album, but unfortunately Blonde Vinyl did not because of problems Mike was having with his distributor. So LSU did release Cash and Chaos World Tour next year on Siren Records, which I also think was a Mike Knott project somehow, but then they finally went to another label called the label Alarma in 1994 with their album Grace Shaker. And then Knott would go on to do both solo albums and other albums as both LSU, Lifesavers, The Aunt Betty's, and parts of Kush. I'm probably forgetting a few other alter egos of him.
Mm-hmm.
But we covered the Kush album and Mike's solo album Rocket and a Bomb in previous episodes, so be sure to go back and check those out.
Second episode, I think.
Third, maybe it was really early Rocket and a Bomb, yeah. Which, sorry, I'm just going to side. Now that I think about it, like, it does show, like, what a good songwriter he was, and just kind of a creative, I'm going to use use the word genius because I think Rocket and a Bomb is a great album and has some great songs, but it's a very different vibe than this.
Yeah.
And yet I think he's doing great stuff here too. Like he's just, the dude had some talent.
Oh, yes. He's not my style necessarily, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't argue though that he's got talent. Yeah. So that's Mike Knott. Chuck Cummings goes on to play drums with Dakota Motor Company, which is another band we covered on a previous episode. Brian Doige continues to play with Mike in many future bands, including the Aunt Betty's. And he just recently played at a memorial service for Mike a few weeks ago. And there are clips online you can find of that. And it's unclear what happened to Mike Sauerbrey. He didn't seem to play too much after this album, according to Discogs. He does seem to still be alive because I found him on Facebook, but that's about all I know. And then unfortunately, Mike Knott passed away on March 12th, 2024. So luckily he left behind a ton of music. I'm sure at some point we'll cover another Mike Knott release. But it has been really fun to go back and listen to this one.
Yeah. Agreed. And don't forget, like, when Brandon Ebel was starting up Tooth and Nail, the person he went to pretend like Tooth and Nail was a real thing was Mike Knott. Like,
It's true.
Like, the guy is just in the background. He's Forrest Gump of the Christian, like, you know, him and Gene Eugene are just kind of, and there's a bunch of other people, you know, I mean, Steve Hanlon, we've already talked about, Chris Colbert, you know, become kind of geniuses in their own rights of recording music. You know, I think the weirdness of a blonde vinyl, yeah, kind of in some ways gives way to Tooth and Nail, but like Flying Tart is more the inheritor of the weird shit that, because, you know, Mike,
Yeah, that's fair.
you know, like they get fluffy, right? I mean, like, because oh, sorry, that was my mic stand. I'm animated over here. But anyways, the guy is behind the scenes of a lot of stuff, and like, and also he's not. We've talked a little bit in the other album, you know, his struggle with mental illness and alcohol abuse and things like that, you know. But like, he's just, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that wouldn't be tamed in a world that wanted him to be tamed.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a wild at heart kind of way. Fuck off. I mean, in a punk rock way. He was punk rock. He was DIY. He did everything himself. I mean, not just himself, but you know what I'm saying. Like, he built a cast of characters. He surrounded himself with great people. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when I came home today, a painting had fallen off the wall, and underneath it was my Roomba. And I say that because it just made noise out in the hallway where it's still there because we got on here so quickly. Anyways, so I guess the Roomba probably hit the wall and the painting probably fell on the Roomba and the Roomba got stuck under the painting and couldn't move. I would love to have seen it. All right. Back to this. Okay. Do you have an award for this album, Jay?
I do, Clifton, and I'm going to call this one the Prophetic Award, both because, you know, this is an album about the Grape Prophet, but also I think Mike Knott was fucking prophetic with the stuff he's saying in this, because he really nails this, even though it's like 30 years later, that it becomes clear that, wow, he was onto something with all the sexual stuff in this album.
Yeah. Well, all right. Cool. Well, Jay, what are we doing on the next episode?
I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think I've got this right. We are doing the Insiders.
Mm-hmm.
God, I think it's like their third album from 1998.
I think it's their second album. This is before Skullaleluia.
Okay. I thought it was after. All right. Before Skullaleluia, called The Fight of my life?
Mhm.
Fight of
Yeah.
your life? The fight of my life. Yeah.
And I'm excited to learn if I remember any of this album.
I am. I don't know how I feel about it, but Clifton has now chosen another album by a band that cannot spell their name correctly and also has terrible cover artwork. But
So bad.
maybe.
And
I
here's the
have-
thing, Jay. I had high hopes for. I remember being 16 years old, 17 years old, something like that, and like I loved the first Insiders album, as
Sure.
corny as it was,
Right.
and I was like, oh man. And the Insiders were always kind of one of the harder, were the harder of the three Christian ska bands, you know.
Fair.
And of course, there's more than three, but you get my drift here.
Right.
And like you see the album cover, and it's kind of this dark, kind of sepia tone thing where they're all kind of looking very serious. I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get a dark, kind of a less silly, like what I would think of now as like a Boss Tones type ska album, right? Like I didn't know Boss Tones back then,
Yeah.
but you know, like Boss Tones are like the ska band that isn't always just silly and farting into a trumpet or something like that, you know. And that was like I was so excited for that.
Okay.
It's not what we get, Jay.
Oh, well, am I excited to listen to it? I don't know.
Prepare
listen
to
to it.
be disappointed.
Well, that happens with a lot of our albums, so it will be interesting. Nonetheless, I'll be checking it out soon.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Music Saved Us.
If you enjoyed your time with us, please leave us a review or share this episode. Visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. Visit our website, yourmusicsavedus.com, to find out all the ways to listen. We're on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Join our Facebook group or follow us to keep up with the latest or interact with us. Send complaints and disagreements to yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com.
The music in this episode is the work of LS Underground and is used with apologies, not permission. And I will say there is a ton of Mike Knott stuff online on Bandcamp. If you want to listen to this album, go to lsunderground.bandcamp.com and you can find it there.
You can find re-releases of some of his stuff on Lost in Ohio. You can find all of his stuff there, which I'm assuming that money's going to his family now, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got re-releases. He has all kinds of it's a lot of stuff. Honestly.
Yeah, like if you want to dive into Mike Knott, luckily
Yes.
people have made it available and there's a ton of stuff online. It's pretty fun to listen to, actually.
And if you want to get into the lore, there's knotheads.com.
Which is a lot more on this. And then also, again, we will link to the liner notes on this, which is really worth a read just to get, more of the vibe on this for sure.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.